to another episode of the Beyond the Device podcast, where we explore the life-defining moments that shape careers within the medtech industry. We are particularly interested in understanding how personal experiences, challenges or pivotal events have influenced professional decisions and journeys in the medtech industry. And as we progress through the conversation, we will eventually land on the question, what is the one turning point or pivotal moment in your career or in your life that has changed everything and set you on the path that you're on today? So our guest today is someone that's worked within MedTech for over 25 years. They started their career in a sales rep position and quickly progressed into sales and marketing management roles, director roles. They then moved out of sort of big corporation, stepped into MedTech startup as chief commercial officer, and then took the big next step as to become the CEO of a MedTech startup called IQ Endoscopes that some of you may have heard of. Before we introduce this person, just on a personal level, IQ Endoscopes is a business and a partnership that is close to us at Capu. We started working with them right at the beginning of our journey, which was sort of similar time to when they started. So we've almost gone on that growth journey together. So it's a relationship that we value truly. So I'd like to introduce you to Matt Ginn, the CEO of IQ Endoscopes. Thank you for coming.
No worries. Thanks, Nathan. Thanks, Duncan.
Welcome. So to kick things off, Matt, can you just take us back to where your story began? So tell us a bit about your early years and what shaped you growing up.
So a bit of background on myself. I'm 46 years old, grew up down in the south of England. I went to university in Wales, and then I found myself, up in the Midlands now. I'm married, been married to Sarah for nearly 20 years. We've got two children, Seb and Barnaby, who are 14 and 12. So life is pretty busy. Oh, and a dog, as everyone has now after COVID. And I guess, my background is really, I'm someone who's always been fascinated in medicine. It was either medicine or dentistry, actually, when I was growing up. And that came from a point of view that I kind of wanted to help people. And I've always been fascinated by the sciences. So I did science and languages through my GCSEs and then into my A levels. Unfortunately, didn't pursue a career in medicine, and probably that's maybe a one regret I'll look back on. Should I have done that? Could I have done that? But medicine, science, and helping people has always been kind of core to what I believe in and what I wanted to do in life. So I've always been looking for products or technologies that can impact the patient, can make people better, can help the lives of the users, and really help us live in a better society. So I guess my journey in healthcare and in medtech innovation started back in the early days. Probably safe to say I should have been doctor, but never went down that journey. Chose business and French instead.
Okay. And what led you to those early interests? Was there any role models, your parents, teacher? What was it?
Yeah, I think my mum was a zoologist, so my mum was a scientist and a lecturer, and just something I got on with at school. I could really understand it. I could understand the principles of it. Across the sciences, definitely biology, definitely chemistry. Struggled with physics a little bit. That's probably too mathematical in when it gets complicated. But yeah, no, I was always a linguist, so I love my languages and I love my science. And I don't know, maybe foundations in languages such as Latin give you some of the terminology that you can understand, and then once you could understand the concept, it was quite able to understand the theories and what you were being taught. So yeah, definitely influenced by my mum, who was a zoologist and worked hard at that, helping a student outside of the school. But then yeah, it was just something it resonated with me and something I understood from an early age. So that and languages definitely were the two things that I pursued through my studies.
So coming through your studies and then into industry, what was your first break into the medtech industry? How did that happen?
Yeah, so I followed a degree in business and French. Probably because I played too much sport, and when I should have been revising for exams. So I did actually have an offer for medical school, which I didn't take because, as I say, was distracted with other things. So probably look back on it and think, oh, I should have done a bit better there. But my big break was when I got my degree. At Cardiff, decided not to go travelling, wanted to earn some money, I was working, selling advertising in an IT magazine, and suddenly realised, I can actually talk to people on the phone and convince them to spend money on something that they've never heard of before. But then I joined a company. I was always wanting to be, back something to do with medicine. I was always toying with, do I go back and do a conversion degree? Do I go back and actually become a doctor? And it never quite happened. But I came across an opening for an account manager with a medical device company called Bard, so a big company called CR Bard. I didn't realize at the time they just acquired a business called Davil, which was the hernia mesh business, and they were looking to scale that. And I was living in Cardiff, and there was an opening for a sales rep position running the southwestern Wales region for these products called hernia meshes. I didn't even know what a hernia was, but I looked into it, understood what the job was, went for the interviews, and was successful. And then I still look back at my career now, and actually some of the most enjoyable days were carrying the bag as a rep. Because in what we were selling was hernia meshes, so you had to meet with surgeons, you had to be able to talk to them in a language that they understood, and you had to be able to understand what they were trying to achieve. And you go through your sales program where not everyone will buy from you. So I quickly thought about, right, let's not come across as a salesperson. Let's actually understand their world. Let's become, can I understand that area of the body and physiology as much as they do? So I really took it upon myself to dive into deeply, right, what was a hernia, why are they caused, what are the solutions, what's the problem for the patient, what's the surgeon trying to achieve, and do I have a solution that would benefit from them? And actually able to train yourself to just have a conversation on that level. And I absolutely loved it because it was a great, anyone going into med device repping, I just hired, when you're young, it's brilliant. You've got a car, you've got a good salary, you get a bonus, you get to drive around a territory, you don't have to go to an office. It's like running your own little business. It's great. It was, we were fortunate. We had a really good product, or a really good suite of products, like really, really good. So they were great to try and sell, but we were always quite expensive, which was the value-based part of it. But the bit that triggered it for me was being able to, really throw myself into that world and understand it. Even to how a mesh interacts with the body at a cellular level. What happens when you place a hernia mesh into the abdominal wall? What's the reactions that take place and why? But then finding yourself in theatre, you are bedside to a surgeon who's operating on a patient. He asks to try your product, or he or she, you hand it to them, and you've got to talk them through what to do. And all those lovely anatomical diagrams that show layers of the body and how they're changed. It's just a red mess, and you've got to be able to talk to them in their language. There's no left, right, there's medial, lateral, proximal, distal. You've got to be able to talk to them. And I loved it because you'd find your day driving around, between cases, chasing cases, you're in your scrub gear, you're going there, you're just fully on the go. But for me, with that craving of should I have been a doctor, I actually found myself probably getting what I wanted from it, being the bedside, in theatre, in surgery, but also being able to earn a decent wage and have a really good life at the same time. So that was that's what first got me into it, and I still, probably this is the only job that's come close so far to the fun of that one. But that was absolutely brilliant. First 4 years or so as a rep, just having a ball.
And I think when you start in a position like that, it's almost seen as a job. You get some nice perks, the pay's good, you get your car.
Yeah.
And I think once you start to build a bit of reputation for yourself, you start to build your network. You then start to look at it a bit longer term as a career. I can actually build a career in this industry. I enjoy it. It's exactly what Nathan and I did when we got into recruitment. We've said so many times, it was potluck almost on our first day. We could have been put on a finance desk or an IT desk, and we were given medical devices and started to understand what that meant, and the relationships that we built, the customers that we worked with, the technology, and that's why we're here 11 years later still doing it, because it found a passion in it.
Yeah, exactly. And whether you're carrying the bag, marketing it, financing it, supply chain operations, if you wholeheartedly believe that the product or technology that you're representing is going to have a dramatic impact on society, whether it's to the patient, the provider, the payer, then you're doing a good thing. And you've just got to be convinced. But the biggest thing I had is I've always worked for companies where I've really believed in the product and just so emotionally attached to it. And it doesn't matter what role you do in that, whether you're carrying the bag or you're marshalling the troops. You've got to be able to believe in your product that it's making a real difference, to the patient. And there's been a couple of opportunities where I've thought about other openings and really looked at the product, thought, no, it just doesn't do it for me. And that for me comes top of everything before, remuneration, before any of those, material considerations is, do I really believe in what I'm doing? And is the technology I'm representing in whatever way, does it resonate with me?
And so you spoke about sort of being close to theatre surgeons, sort of that's kind of giving you your medical kick that you wanted, but you obviously then progressed in your career and probably moved out of the field. What was the sort of thought process there?
Um, yeah, well, I stayed at Bard for nearly 10 years. So
Yeah.
I was a rep first, and then so I was in a team of 8 of us, and we reported into a national sales manager. And then my national sales manager, he was promoted, and then they looked within for a successor. And, I went for the role. And, by that time I'd done, there was a thing called President's Club. If you double your target or you add 50% growth onto your territory. So I'd done President's Club as the first time in the division, then did it again the next year, and then again the following year. So it was, a series of pretty outstanding achievements. Built the biggest territory, and then became the national sales. Then was promoted to national sales manager, then national sales and marketing manager, which is always interesting because then you're managing and leading the team that you've been a part of.
Yeah.
So you've been, friends that you meet at conferences, colleagues, probably taught each other the shortcuts and how to do things, and and then you have to go up and go from peer to leader, which was really challenging, particularly as you might, at the time I was in my late 20s, early 30s. That was the next step, and then from there I did the national sales and marketing manager role for 3 years. Again, double the target, keep growing it strong. By that time we'd turned it into a big old business. And then I got the chance to be, there was a European marketing vacancy. And I was actually, my whole background had been commercial and sales, and I'd learned marketing along the way. I mean, my degree, I had a marketing module within my degree. But, then the leap into European marketing, I remember this really clearly. There was somebody earmarked for that role who was a true marketeer, and I was seen as the sales, but actually, when I was able to communicate my vision that, sales and marketing have got to go together, complement each other to actually get that final benefit for the patient. I was probably the wild card pick for that role, but then went into a regional marketing role for 2 years. So kind of stayed within there stayed within Bard for the best part of 10 years.
And what we find through these conversations is people go through it might be more than one defining moment that
Yeah,
ultimately changed what was going on for you and perhaps set you on a different path or a new path. Is
yeah,
there anything that you would highlight throughout your career where that happened?
yeah. I think I don't think everyone should be like this. Everyone's got to do what's right for them. But my view is I'm always someone who works best when I'm outside my comfort zone. So I've learned over time, if I ever get comfortable, if I ever get secure, I can get a bit complacent. And actually I get my best results when I've got that little bit of stress or anxiety of, we don't really, I've not done this before. And then you've got to go and figure it out quickly. And, you've got to take that leap, that you've got to believe that what you have done is going to be good enough and it's the best you can do, and, go and do it. So I've had several experiences in my career when I've changed roles, and I've always changed role into a role I've never done before. So I think the only time I've had a little bit of a career path was back in those early days of Bard, where it really, you probably got about a year's worth of notice that you were going to be going to the next role, had a bit of development from your manager, you start getting exposed with some things about what you're going to have to do. But then when I left Bard and went to Mölnlycke, then when I left Mölnlycke, I went to Proximie. When I left Proximie, I went to IQ Endoscopes. They're always roles I've never done before. And I don't, I've definitely got one example where it's changed, I think, where I will go from now on as a person. But I think in all of those parts, you look back and go, they were defining because you stepped into a world that you hadn't done before. And, when you're in that environment, it's fight or flight. You either work it out, you learn, you figure it out quickly, work out your blind spots, go, or you don't. And I think for me, every time I've made that step, it's pushed me to another level. And, probably now when I put all those things on a table, I probably come across as quite a well-rounded individual. But you've got to be brave enough to say, okay, I'm going to do that. I'm going to put myself to that. And I haven't done it before, but I'm going to learn it quickly.
And in terms of like the impact that's had on you professionally, you've obviously gone on, done something new, been successful at it, gone on to the next thing, and your track record shows that. But what's
Yeah.
the impact on you personally during those times where you are, you're switching into something uncertain? Like, what's actually going on in your mind at that point?
Yeah, you've got to be resilient. You've got to be able to cope with pressures because you're going to have stresses. If you're in the right environment, well, my environment's always been results-driven organizations that push the barriers hard and expect high results because you're ultimately delivering that maximum return for the patient, which is what is the foundation. I think for me as a person, it's really it's there's anxiety, there's stress, there's pressure, and it's how you cope with it. And it's fun doing something new because you're learning, but you're probably going to be around people who've done it before, and especially if you're in a leadership position, you might know that you've not done it before, and people around you have, and you can have a bit of paranoia creeping in, you can have a bit of self-doubt. All of that is a bit of a pressure cooker, and what you have to figure out is how to deal with it. And dealing with it for me comes on a couple of levels. You've got to be able to escape. So you've got, in everything I do, how hard I work, there's an on and there's an off switch. You've got to be able to switch off to be able to recover, and to be able to recharge and go hard at it again the next day. So you've got to find a balance in your life or a way of leaving the baggage at the door. That became easier for me as I started having a family and having children, because you actually start realizing that there are many more different important things in life rather than what you do. So you've got the learnings for me, or what was going on inside my mind was all those things together: anxiety, resilience, doubt, self-doubt, paranoia. Am I doing a right job? So I tried to find a mechanism where I would be able to rationalize some of those by getting feedback. So I would know if I'm doing a good job or not. So I'd always actively ask for feedback. Then I'd find ways to switch off and make sure I was allowed to switch off, which is normally, people who say they don't switch off or they can't, it's probably coming from them rather than people around them.
Yeah.
So I made sure I found a way to switch off. And then I do struggle sometimes with a little bit of self-doubt and a little bit of paranoia. Have I done it right? And the way that you get through that is actually by asking people. So, I said it's seeking feedback, but also learning about it, picking it up quickly and being able to, and just have an environment outside all that you can switch off, just go and have your normal life. So, for me, every time it's done that, I've learned more skill sets, which, someone could look at my CV and my experience and go, right, really well rounded for this role. But actually, as a person, I've developed every single time, and it's difficult because yes, you've got the excitement of developing with all the positives you're learning, but there's something that when you're outside your comfort zone, you've got to, it's not pleasant the whole time, and you've got to find ways to coping with it. And I'm not someone who tends to get too up or too down. I'm quite a positive person. But if I can't figure something out, I'm quite open. I'll go and talk. And I think the biggest thing I learned was, if you are worrying if you're doing the right thing or is it of the right standard or other people, just ask people. Everyone's human beings, and seeking feedback is really powerful.
And the kind of experiences that you've just described around your feelings, the anxiety, just not knowing everything and what that brings. How has that influenced the direction of your career to the point that you're now the CEO of a MedTech startup, from a sales rep in Bard to here? Like, how has that put you to where you are?
I think, there's a technical answer to that, which is when you go for roles, if you go from, I followed a path, and some people might look and go, it's quite traditional. You've gone sales rep, national sales manager, regional marketing, regional leadership, chief commercial officer, CEO. So a very commercially driven path. I've never done supply chain, never done operations, never done finance. People can meander in different ways. So all those experiences, when I look back at what I do now, I've ran a P&L, which is high value products, low volume. I've run a P&L, which is low value products, high volume. So other way round. So you learn about driving revenue and then the efficiencies in your margins, then your efficiencies in some of the operational, gains that you can make. So I've learned all that, and all of it has been, for me in that journey, is the realization that you can't do everything alone. So I'm someone who really believes in driving results through people. You can set the direction, whether you're a national sales manager, whether you're a local manager, a regional, whatever it is, you're setting a direction. You can't just do it yourself, because then that's not my view. You've got to build strong teams around you, and you have to, two things I've learned along the way is you have to build results through people, and you have to create a culture for people to thrive within. So that's been the technical learning of it. And I think on the personal side, as you go through all those different journeys, you've just got to remember that you're not superhuman, you're not invincible. Everyone's got frailties, and you have to understand. Well, I've tried to understand what are the stresses I feel. Where am I going to feel negative? How do I turn that negative into positive? And what do I have to do that? And then make time to do it. Because if you don't, you won't be here. We talk a lot in our business about sustainability, and we go straight to raw materials and manufacturing. Well, my first view is sustainability. Will you be here in 5 years' time? But not just you, operating at your maximum, operating at your best. And to be sustainable, you've got to allow yourself time to decompress. So, kind of a long-winded answer there for you, Nathan, but it's more, technically I've gone through the ranks and learnt more each time and built I probably when you throw yourself into different situations that you haven't learned, you experience different scenarios. So I've probably experienced quite a few scenarios where I've got them right, I've got them wrong, or I've seen other people get them right or wrong, and then you can bring it together. But the common fact is you've got to create an environment where people will thrive. You've got to have good people around you. You've got to trust them to do their jobs, deliver their results, and you can't do it all yourself, and you shouldn't do it all yourself.
And are there any sort of standout lessons from each time you've put yourself in an uncomfortable position that you can literally carry with you today?
Yeah, I think I got a few lessons based on my character. I'm a really positive person. I enjoy being around people, quite jovial with people. You've got to be able to separate friends from work as well a little bit, which is hard if certainly where we work at the minute, IQ, it's just a great place. Everyone gets on really well together, but you've got to reward where rewards there, and you've got to make things better, and there's some difficult decisions. So, learnings for me is just really, developing that and making sure, you're always able to have that healthy relationship where, the bottom line is it's about performance, performance in the right way. And when you see good performance, you've got to accelerate it. When you see other people performing well, you've got to celebrate them, but show others how they got there and the journey for others to aspire to. When you see performance going badly, you've got to step in really quickly before it's a level you can't resurrect. You've got to solve it. And I think lessons for me is I'm a really open person, really approachable. You've got to tread that line as well. And sometimes you can be too over familiar with people, and you've got to correct that. So, lots of things going through, but I think the biggest learning I've had is just be true to yourself. You're going to know things, you're not going to know things. Just be honest, be open, and try your best. And if you don't know it, don't hide it. Go and ask people to figure it out. So yeah.
Nice. I just wanted to talk about your support systems, because they may have changed throughout the years, but in the position of a CEO now, people talk that it is a lonely job. Maybe there's an expectation to know everything and lead, and you've talked about the ways that you manage self-doubt, stress, the need to switch off. But I just wanted to delve into that a little bit deeper. Currently now, is it the chairperson? Is it your wife? Is it a best mate that's got nothing to do with family life or work life? What do you lean on?
Yeah, it's the first time I've been a CEO, and it is. Yeah, I actually don't like those three letters. It's the first time I've been leading an organisation as opposed to part of an organisation. And I always try and make it not about me, because it can't be about the person in my view. It's got to be about setting the direction. So I've been in this position for 4 years, having taken on, I've never taken on a product from concept stage. I've always had products, probably R&D level development, never raised finances, and I've never run a business. And we started this all in the middle of COVID in a pretty tough economic climate. So I'd say the last 3 or 4 years have been pressures like I've never experienced before. And it is a lonely place, because ultimately if you hold yourself accountable, then you're accountable, and you have to deliver, and you have people above you, the board and the shareholders who are wanting to know from you what you're doing, how you're doing, are you on plan, are you on track, and lots of pressures coming down. I answer to the board of directors, and quite rightly, we put plans in front of them, say we're going to hit these, and you need to show that you're hitting the plan, but also thinking wider around what are the risks going to come to the business, how are we mitigating those, what else can we do, how are we going to win? The question of how are we going to win, you've got to define what winning is, what does it mean to that business, and all these things are tough. And then you've got an organization that you have to run, properly, and sometimes what you need to do upwards is not quite the same as down because people have got slightly different trajectories. So I try not to make it a lonely job because ultimately everyone around you wants to help. But you are accountable I'd say you're accountable in every direction, and that can really squeeze you and put constant pressure on yourself. So I think, what I've learned, my support networks now, I've got several, firstly, my wife and my family, we chat a lot. I'm really open about how I'm feeling, and make, and I'm told, when I'm on holiday, if I'm there or not, you are phone down, put your laptop down, and you realize that you do have to, immerse yourself in decompressing to be able to go back and be a better version of yourself. I've got, a group of friends actually from school. So we all known each other since we were 12. So 30 something years now that we all still meet up and talk and chat, and we've all got different careers, and you can go on to a phone call with someone or meet up with someone and think you've got the biggest problem. They just absolutely break it down to, almost, take the mick out of it, and you realize it's not that serious, or something. So I've got a really good group of friends that we are, super close and tight with, and everyone's been quite, well, say the word successful, it depends what success is. Everyone's got pretty good careers. And we kind of, we can just humanize it really quickly. And I think for me, I do a lot of talking. So when I need to, there have been so many times I've been really stressed about a problem. And the reason I've been stressed about it is that it's a problem that needs to be solved for us to become better. And because I care about my role a lot, I take that quite personally, and I really try and solve it. And the support networks are, you don't need to solve it on your own. And actually, the best way to solve things is to talk to other people to see how have they done it before, and be humble. So you need to reach out and say, look, I'm trying to solve this. You've done it in a different way. Listen to somebody. You take some nuggets back. But also, I need to remind myself that every time I'm in that, that pressure cooker of a situation, and you're not sleeping, or you're not eating great, or you feel a bit sick, or whatever the emotion you're going through, if you fast forward 3 months, you'll look back and go, it really wasn't that bad. So and you've got to remember. And also, I think you put the pressure on yourself to figure things out, but you're only human, and you've had your experience. So at the end of the day, just do what you can do to the best you can. And, nothing's worth, getting yourself into an unhealthy state on, but you need support networks around you. You need people to pick you up when you're down. You need people to keep a lid on you when you're getting a bit too high and a bit too big for your boots. And you need people just to cut through and go, what you're worried about really does not matter at the minute. And so, I do that through my family, through my friends. I've got a couple of non-exec directors at the company who I really, speak to, and they've been there before. And also I've learned more. Actually, I'm a positive person. I want to try and do things. I want to try and succeed. But actually, if something's not going right, just go and tell the person it's not going right. And actually, this is what I'm trying to do, but it doesn't seem to be working. How can I get better? So I think it's they're my kind of support networks I go to, and then at the same time making sure, and we've built it in IQE, that we do have a culture where things turn off. You can't be go the whole time. You've got to be able to dim the light switch a little bit. And so I have some times in my diary set aside where I just go and do something for myself, and I just go and decompress. And it's sometimes, just that part. And, I think the final piece on this is I've learned I can sometimes create my own problems by being too aggressive on a timeline, or trying to maybe say yes too quickly. And as soon as you said yes and committed to a timeline, it's in the diary, and that starts. So actually, not saying you push things down the road, but just always commit to the essential stuff, build the other things around it, but don't, and you've got to be able to put things through your team. So I would actually say the biggest of all those things, which are quite personal, the biggest professional support network I've got is my leadership team, for sure. We've worked really hard over the last 2 to 3 years to bring people into the business who are experts in their roles, and we have a really open dialogue. We share, people know their part of the business, but the wider parts, and we say, look, this is what needs figuring out. Who can help? Who can do this? And you don't need to be so proud that it's just you don't have to do it. Ultimately, you've always got to make sure that the problem is fixed, and it's fixed by the right person. So I'd say my biggest support network over the last, definitely 24 months has been bringing in a more established and next level leadership team for where we need to go. So you're surrounded by people who can help you solve those problems.
Yeah, yeah. I think the personal sort of self-awareness that you've got and the tools and systems that you've got in place this last 4 years, it's almost now implementing them to create a business that others benefit from. Because you think from taking a product from concept, you've got all of the technical and commercial challenges of building that business, but ultimately you are now also responsible for creating a culture and an environment and leading from the front by example. So you mentioned a couple of policies there. There's time where you just switch off and do something for yourself. Is there any examples of anything else for the IQ Endoscopes team where from personal lessons you're trying to create that culture where people have that ability to switch off or communicate, lean on each other?
Yeah, we do. We work. When I took this role at IQ, it wasn't just about. I was really struck by the clinical founder's vision of the product, and I thought, and I'm actually somebody who suffers from conditions that require endoscopy, so I was quite emotionally involved in it. I was looking for a first CEO role, so it kind of came together. But I wanted to find the right product, but I also wanted to build a company alongside it, and you've got to have the culture and the company to go alongside your technology. And we've moved from 4 years of R&D. We've got our first human cases coming up. Then we're going into early commercialization, and then it's really exciting that the rubber's hit the road. You're starting to sell it. You're starting to see the product being used on patients, starting to see the impact it makes. At the same time, you might go back and now build another product. So you've got both things coming together. So the organization is about to become a lot more complex. But some things that I always bring into IQE is we're just a group of people, and let's have fun. We don't have to like each other. That's not a given, but we can create an environment that we respect each other. And, we only live once, and let's make sure we're living a good life. Let's make sure we're living a fun life. So we've created a culture where everyone's really relaxed in the office. I hope if someone walked in and didn't know who was who, they wouldn't be able to figure out the hierarchy. It should be actually we've had a lot of feedback about how kind of just how much of an engaged culture it is, but we work really hard at that. And the best way I do it is just being human, just being me. I take things really seriously. I don't take myself too seriously, and it's just putting that balance. I believe a lot in if someone knows what to do and why they do it, then they can go and do it. So it's the what and the why equals the how. So I communicate a lot about what's going on. We've had some really close calls financially in terms of running out of cash. And this, the biggest stress for me over the last few years has been the responsibility of people's employment and livelihoods, and knowing that, okay, if IQE didn't work, it would be a real shame on so many levels. Financially, I'll be okay for a while, but people who are working for me won't be. And I created their jobs, and they've left whatever they were doing to come into my vision or our vision. And so that weighs really heavily on my mind. And I never want to cover things up. And actually thinking about it, that has been the biggest stress driver in the last 2 years, was when we did have some pretty close calls, was the impact. You're responsible for 30 other people and their family and their livelihoods, and you never want to see them in a tough market and not having a job. Even some people we've had to say goodbye to for different reasons. It's been really hard. But I always focus on, this is what is happening and why it's happening, or this is what I need you to do and why I need you to do it. And it should focus up onto a main strategy. And then how you do it, you let someone go and use their skill set to do it in the best way, because you don't want to tell them how to do it, because then you might as well do it yourself. And you've got to let them do it. And that builds that. So we have a really, up, down, left, right flow of communication the whole time about what's happening. And I don't dress it up. This is what we're doing. This is why. But as a leadership team, we've thought really hard about the strategic direction we're going in, and making sure we've got aligned strategies and OKRs to be able to, we're not flipping the whole time. Yes, our path has to be agile, but what we're doing and why we're doing it remains the same. And we communicate that well. And I think that goes down well with the team.
Yeah.
The other thing I was going to say, the other thing we brought in, or we're really open on, is at any point, everyone asks you what's going well, what you're working on. what's not going well. So where have you got a problem and where do you need help? And we had in the early days so many people nervous about saying there was a problem, and now it's almost too free flowing. We've allowed people, we want people to express where they need help, and then people dive in and they help them. We've now got this culture that we're calling out the whole time. This is worrying me. This isn't going on track. And it's just being able to say, right, we're here to help you. It doesn't matter if the CEO's coming in to help. That's not a bad thing. I can help you. Let's get it done. And you learn from that quickly, and you move forward. So we do lots of things like that to make sure we're a real cohesive bunch. And then at the same time, one of our engineers came up with an idea of a potluck lunch that we do once a month. So everyone is in the office, just brings whatever. If it's potluck, whatever comes in, that's lunch for the day. Everyone does different things. We have a company social every few months, 2-3 months, which isn't, company socials used to be down the pub. It's not that. We could do anything. So we've gone and done cookery courses together. We've gone and learnt new skills. We've gone and played board games together, just taking the team out. And then, probably the other thing that we've done at the business, which has really been really rewarding, is when there's been a really exceptionally big delivery of a project or a milestone, we've given the whole company a day off or 2 days off. We said, right, everyone go and chill out. We gave everyone an extra week at Christmas because we've hit a big milestone on like the 15th of December. And we just woke up on the 16th and said, right, we don't want to see anybody in the office till the 2nd of January. Let's go and celebrate this. And yeah, we just try and, and it comes back to, for me, is making sure that our mission is resonating with people. They know what we're doing, why we're doing it. They feel accountable. They feel a part of it. They feel like they can communicate and, let's just have some fun because we only get this opportunity once, and we take the good with the bad. So yeah, long answer, but lots of things.
No. I think there's so many great examples there that other leaders, other founders, first-time founders, CEOs can take from that. And having worked with IQ Endoscopes from the early days when we first started as well, we had the opportunity to come over and finally see you guys, where we met 7 or 8 people that we'd placed into this business, and very open plan. The culture was fantastic. So we can actually validate what you've said there. That is accurate. It's a success story, but I also know that the pressures from a financing perspective, we've bounced some ideas around vacancies in the past, and one thing you've always said is that ethically, I don't want to go out and recruit somebody that may be in a secure position now if I can't guarantee their employment beyond, say, the next however many 12 months, 18 months. So you were very clear on that every time, that you needed the position and the company to be secure, because that was just your values as a leader.
It's the, as I say, it's been the biggest I call it stress drive, the biggest pressure on me as a person. And I am accountable for the business. It's not just the successes. We have to run it in a legal way according to, the ISO standards we have. We have quality management systems, all the good things. I can take technology going right or wrong. It's fine. We'll figure things out. We'll get through. As an early stage company, you are just a very quick bug fixer. You just play whack-a-mole, just, fix it, move on, fix it, move on, keeps the path. But yeah, it's that responsibility that I have 30 other people who've all got friends and family, who've all got mortgages, who've all got different pressures. And, in what's been some really tough economic climates, the last thing we want to do is for people to be not having a role. And that has been really tough when we did have to cut some cost and let some people go who are great people. It's not something that we take lightly. But then if we, ultimately, if we have a good plan and if we deliver the plan, even though we're working in a tough economic climate, there is funding out there for, I watched a panel with one of our lead investors on, and he made a really clear point that funding is out there if you deserve it. Mm-hmm. And the way you deserve it is by showing your vision and your mission, the problem you want to solve is worth solving, and then you can deliver that pathway to solve that problem. And if you can hit your milestones and show constant development, there is capital out there to fund businesses. And the best way that I can make sure that I'm accountable for other people's livelihoods is to deliver the goals that we set, and find that balance between goals which are worth achieving, worth solving. They're stretch goals, but they're not too stretched that people just can't do it. So that's kind of how I've try to go around that stress driver is actually, I can solve this for people by making sure that we are always finding new funding, and the way to find new funding is to be the best possible option for someone to invest in.
So looking ahead, where do you see yourself both personally and then professionally? So let's start with personal.
Oh, I don't know. I've learned
That's
not to
normally
think
the hardest
about
one
it.
to answer because I'm not sure
Yeah,
people
no,
really know.
I think yeah, the most important thing for me on a personal level is happiness. It's, am I happy in what I'm doing? Not necessarily do I enjoy it. Well, enjoyment and happiness are the same for me. Am I enjoying what I'm doing? And I love what we're doing at IQ Endoscopes. Even the stressful times are good, But on a personal level, it's just making sure, I recently had some tough personal events with losses and things like that, and you think you realize you are very vulnerable, and you're just you have one life, so you just got to make sure that you're being, what is it important to you in whatever stage you're going to, and how do you do that. So personally for me, I just always want to be enjoying what I do, engaged in what I do, and making a difference. As soon as I feel I'm not making a difference or I'm not the right person, then it's having that early conversation and saying, right, who is the next person to take whatever you're doing to the next level, and
Yeah.
being really open about that. I listened to another investor conference about, you got the right CEO for the right stage of the business. So, just because you're CEO doesn't mean you're guaranteed a job. In fact, you're probably far from it. You've got to keep delivering. So personally for me is to always make sure I'm enjoying my work and I feel fulfilled and I feel motivated and happy with it, which is absolutely there. And I don't see that changing for quite a while. Um, I'm really proud father and husband, and I'm really close to my family, and making sure that I'm there for them. That's very important for me. I don't know what the next role after this one, but I'm not even thinking about that because this is such an exciting journey. We just want to take to the next stage. But my personal motivation is happiness, engagement, fulfillment, and making sure that you've got a purpose for every day and you're doing it. And then, outside of work, making sure you leave time for people, both your commitments to others and a commitment to yourself. So that's on a personal level. And professionally, we just, I think the professional goal next is making sure that as a leader, I'm not just executing the current vision which we've got, but where's the future going? How are we building this roadmap? Where are we placing ourselves as a strategy? I probably don't, there's probably no other job I'm going to go to next, but it's the evolution of the job, and how do we turn it now from this small company of 30 into a bigger company where we are profitable and we're self-driving, and the things that come, and knowing the role I can play in that journey, and also being aware of the role I can't play in that journey, and work. You just got to always work out, are you always the right person for that stage of the business or the next one, or maybe the one after that. So yeah, I'm never in any interview, and this isn't an interview, but if I ever had an interview, I never ever can answer where do you see yourself in 5 years. I don't know.
Yeah. Ridiculous question.
Yeah, no, no. But all I want to be as a person is fulfilled and pushing myself. Yeah, and fulfillment for me comes from different things. So I just want to make sure I'm happy, I'm engaged, I'm fulfilled, and I've got a balance in my life, because I know if I don't have balance, it's pretty out of kilter.
And just more broadly, what excites you about the future of MedTech?
I the excitement. I mean, one thing with all of us in this industry is you don't have a shortage of a customer because patients are always there, and so you've got a customer base. I go to a lot of conferences where, whether it be LSI or MedTech Strategist, where everyone's trying to meet investors and pitch for money. And you just see the amount of, like, there's hundreds of CEOs there who are all representing incredible technologies. You know, I follow to, ours is quite simple. It's a single use scope with a camera on the back that you can shove up you or down you. It's quite a simple technology, but it's really needed. Yeah, and it's really hard to get that right. And I see so many inventions of really clever stuff, and you go, wow. As a human being, if that's available to you, blood tests that will tell you, if you've got cancer, breath tests that might tell you if you've got diabetes. I'm not a big fan of machine learning and AI, but the robots are coming, in terms of interpretation, it's there. But the excitement is, I think in the UK in particular, the number of innovators we have, obviously the academic system, the medical system spitting out, it's so exciting. So I get excited about what could be there on offer as a patient to help us live, longer and longer, and for my children to live longer and longer, and hopefully their children. And I think the bit I always come back to about how we can make a difference is there then a society or a system that can adopt those? Because sometimes a lot of these technologies, the NHS can't adopt them; they're just too sophisticated. But when you go around and you mix with other CEOs of other companies and you understand their product, it's like, wow, how have you come up with that? When's that available? And I think about it from me as a patient, go, that would be incredible to have. I think we've got and there MedTech is exciting. It's really exciting, and I'm doing a careers talk actually at my son's school on med device because no one knows it as a career. Everyone
Yeah.
can be a doctor, a lawyer, all these different things. You've got commercial opportunities, finance opportunities, HR opportunities, marketing opportunities, supply chain opportunities. These medtech companies need people with all these different abilities to come in, and it's really exciting. The technologies coming through are just incredible at the minute, and we need to be able to accelerate those quickly so they're adopted.
Nice. Well, you started the conversation by saying maybe there was a bit of regret not following the path of medical school and becoming a doctor, but based on everything you've told us, I think it's going all right, isn't it?
It'll still be there, but too late now.
So with everything that you've shared with us, there's going to be so many people on their own journeys at different stages in their career. But if you were to think about all of the lessons you've learned, all of the development and growth, if you were to leave the listeners with one key lesson from your journey, what would it be?
Just be yourself. Just my lesson: push yourself, take yourself out your comfort zone. Don't just turn the handle. Well, you can do if that's what you want to do, But for me, it wasn't. And the only way you're going to progress in different ways is by making it happen yourself. So my lesson, the lesson that's been true for me is push yourself, work out what's next, work out what you want to do, take the opportunity. Don't overthink it. Don't overthink it, but probably never do the same job twice. Work out the next one, and with that, be prepared for what comes with it, and just be human about it because you're not invincible. Everyone's got pressures, and I think, as I said, the bit is when I talk to other CEOs, we're all going through the same thing. And you're not alone, and and I think don't make yourself alone. So, it's push yourself, try something new. Don't wait till you think you're ready, or don't wait for that reassurance you are ready. Go and do it, and fail fast, and then you learn.
Brilliant. Well, Matt, thank you very much for joining us today. There's so much that we can personally take away, and I'm sure our listeners too. So to the listeners, please like and share, listen to the podcast where you listen to podcasts, and we'll be bringing more conversations from the medtech industry very soon.
Thanks, guys. Really enjoyed it. Take care.
Thanks, Matt.
Cheers. Bye-bye.